Corsair Scimitar RGB Elite promises to be the ultimate MMO and MOBA weapon. 18,000 DPI sensor, 17 programmable buttons, a sliding 12-button side panel, 4-zone RGB, onboard profiles, and so-called pro-grade durability. Either we have finally reached MMO mouse heaven, or this is just another case of RGB lipstick on an overpriced brick. On paper it sounds insane. A PixArt 18K optical sensor, 1000 Hz polling, hardware key remaps, macros, and Corsair iCUE integration that's supposed to control your whole setup. But here's the thing. Once you look past the flashy specs, some cracks start to show. I actually used this as my main mouse for 2 weeks of raids, ranked games, and editing sessions. I've put the direct link to check current pricing in the description. But before you click anything, let me show you what I discovered after 2 weeks of testing. The Scimitar RGB Elite claims to be the all-in-one solution for MMO, MOBA, and productivity. Corsair promises pixel-precise tracking with an 18,000 DPI custom PixArt sensor, a fully adjustable side keypad so every thumb size feels perfect, 17 programmable buttons for macros, keybinds, and profiles. Durable construction good for years of hardcore grinding. Sounds like the endgame mouse, right? A single device that handles raiding, grinding, arena, and even work shortcuts. Pretty bold claims in a market where every brand screams esports grade. But here's where things get interesting. What you actually feel in hand is very different from what the box promises. Reality check. Let's start with the biggest flex, that 18,000 DPI sensor. Corsair wants you to think higher number equals God-tier aim. Reality. Most players sit between 800 and 2400 DPI. At 18K, just breathing on your mouse sends your cursor to the shadow realm. Here's where it gets mathematically impossible. At 18,000 DPI, moving your hand a single millimeter can move your cursor dozens of pixels. Humans just do not play like that. The good news. The PixArt PMW3391 sensor is rock solid at sane DPIs. No jitter, no acceleration in my tests. Tracking was flawless in FFXIV, WoW, and even Valorant. So the claim of precision is real, but the 18K headline is mostly marketing noise. They claim the key slider side panel adapts to any hand. What you actually get is a genuinely clever system, with limits. You can slide the 12-button thumb keypad about 8 millimeters forwards or backwards. On my medium-large hand, I could dial it so every row lined up nicely. But if you have very small hands, you will still feel like you are reaching. And with very big hands, the back row can feel cramped. I dug through multiple review sites, and a pattern showed up. Small-handed users often say it is just a bit too chunky, big-handed users love it. And some report the panel can develop a tiny bit of wobble over time. Not game-breaking, but not the perfect one-size-fits-all solution the marketing implies. They claim 17 programmable buttons equals infinite possibilities. What you actually get is incredible MMO control, clumsy FPS experience. Picture this. In WoW, I bound an entire hotbar to the side keypad, plus interrupts and utility on top. It felt criminally powerful. But then I jumped into Apex Legends. At around 122 grams, this thing is heavy. Lining up flick shots with a mouse this chunky is like trying to drift a truck. That is not versatility, that is expensive specialization. Amazing if you live in MMOs or MOBAs, overkill or even a handicap if you mostly play Twitch shooters. Then there is the software. iCUE is marketed as this unified, seamless control center. The reality, it is powerful, but it is also a resource hog and a learning curve. You can set complex macros, per-game profiles, lighting layers, the works. But let's be real. For a lot of people, it feels like installing a second operating system just to change colors and DPI. I saw multiple user reviews complaining about iCUE, updates breaking profiles, or not detecting the mouse until a reinstall. In my own testing, one update randomly reset my lighting and DPI steps once. Not catastrophic, but definitely annoying. Now let's break down the key parts more surgically. Sensor performance. Tracking is excellent. I tested from 400 up to 6400 DPI across different pads, and it stayed consistent. No spinouts, no weird angle snapping. Polling rate sits solid at 1000 Hz. Here is what nobody tells you. The 18K sensor here is already more than enough in 2025. The newer 26K and 30K sensors you see on some mice are mostly spec sheet flexing. You are not missing practical performance by going with this sensor. Side buttons and ergonomics. The 12 mechanical side buttons have distinct, tactile clicks. You can feel each one by texture and position after a couple of days. That said, what the marketing does not mention is fatigue. If you are spamming all 12 in a raid, your thumb will get a workout. Also, the mouse is big and right hand only. Claw and fingertip grippers will likely find it awkward. This is built for palm grip. Several long-term users on retailer reviews mention that after a year or so, some side buttons start to feel mushier, or one button occasionally misregisters. Not super common, but not unheard of either. Build quality and durability. The shell feels solid, no creaks when you squeeze it. The scroll wheel is rubberized and defined, not too loose. The main clicks use Omron switches rated for millions of presses. But here is where things get interesting. Some buyers report double-click issues after 1-2 years, which unfortunately is pretty standard in the mouse world. It is not a drop-shipped no-name product. Corsair does back it with a proper warranty, but do not expect it to be indestructible. Cable and glide. Here is what nobody tells you. The braided cable is not the softest. Coming from modern paracord-style cables or wireless mice, this can feel a bit stiff, especially if your cable management is bad. PTFE feet are smooth, but paired with the 122G weight, it still feels like a tank compared to ultralight FPS mice. So, verdict time. Would I recommend the Corsair Scimitar RGB Elite in 2025? For pure MMO and MOBA players, yes, recommended with eyes wide open. The pros. Excellent sensor. Incredibly useful 12-button keypad, strong build, and deep customization if you are willing to wrestle with iCUE. The cons. It is heavy, not great for competitive FPS. The software can be annoying, and long-term durability on the buttons is good but not legendary. Price-wise, it often sits in the mid to upper range. If you only play shooters, save your money for a lighter, simpler mouse. But if you live in RAID frames and ability rotations, this thing can genuinely make you faster and more organized. Use it for what it is, an MMO specialist, not a one mouse to rule them all. Stay savage out there. Thanks for sticking around to the end. If this review saved you from wasting money or helped you find something actually worth buying, I have put the link to check current pricing and read more reviews in the description. And hey, if you do decide to buy through my link, it helps fund these investigations without costing you extra. Drop a comment telling me what mouse you are using right now and what you want me to tear apart next. Hit subscribe if you like brutally honest, no-fluff gear breakdowns. This is your channel name, exposing the truth behind the tech. Catch you in the next one.